back to another edition of Confessions of a Black Scientist. Now let's get straight into it. So if you've seen the part before this, you know that in my lab I was basically barraged with a lot of racial and discriminatory comments and questions and things of that nature. If you didn't, then you should go back to one video because you're going to be totally lost when we get to this next part. So to get to this next part of the story, it's the start of the second semester. Everything's cool. We're actually starting to write my first of 2 publications within that lab, and now have to start my TA session. So with the TA session, all PhD or graduate students have to, well, at least in the STEM, have to do 1 or 2 labs a week and help out, be a TA if you don't got a fellowship or an outside fellowship. So everything's good. Everything's all good when I get into this TA session. The professor's great. The other TAs that I work with are great. Now, don't know what changed, but in the middle of the semester, something changed, and something big changed. So we're going to the lab for another one of the lab sessions, and the professor, now we're working with spectrophotometers in this lab. Now, if you're lab savvy, a spectrophotometer is a really simple and straightforward instrument, especially in a general chemistry lab. So they were new, but I knew how to use them, and it wasn't that big of a deal. So the professor actually asked me, because I think she thought I didn't know how to use the spectrophotometer, so whatever. She comes up to me before the lab starts, and she was like, "Hey, do you need me to teach you how to use the spectrophotometer?" And I looked at her, I was like, "No, don't worry about it, I'm good, it's all good." And then her whole demeanor changed. She looked at me and she was like, "No, I'm going to teach you how to use this instrument." And I was just like, "Okay." I was like, "Okay, that's sure, fine." And then she was like, "Okay, little attitude boy." Now, I know what you're thinking. You probably need a little context here. So back in, let's say, Jim Crow and slavery times, the masters and white authoritarians would call black men boys. Now, this was a derogatory statement to basically say that, oh, you're not men, you're not on our level. So at this time, I'm about, how old am I? 24. So definitely not a boy. So for her to call me a boy and then put the attitude in, the way that she said it was really racial, and she actually stormed off after that. Now there was there were students around. People were shocked. They was just like, "What just happened?" And I was like, "I don't know," but we kept going. I had to keep going. Like, I was just like, "Okay, I've been dealing with a whole bunch of racist stuff in my lab, and I don't need to deal with it here. So let me just forget about it and keep moving forward, right?" So I'm thinking, okay, maybe she just had a bad day, but it actually got worse from there on out. And it got worse because she started to harass me in many different ways. I won't go into detail because I'm not trying to make this video too long. But what was the cherry on top of the milkshake here was at the end of the semester, she comes up to me, like, it's the very last lab. I'm cleaning up burettes and cleaning burettes and whatnot. After the kids left, and some of the kids were still around, and she comes up to me and was like, "You know what? You don't have to come to the final next week." I was like, "Really?" I was like, "Oh, cool, bet." Like, I ain't gotta go to the final, man. That means I can stay in lab and get some more work done. That's great. But she keeps on going and says, "I don't want you to sit here and get paid to do nothing because you've been doing that all semester." And she yells it at me and then storms off again. Now, granted, she tells me I've been doing nothing all semester while I'm cleaning, so, it's pretty bad. It was really weird. So things, and I kind of let it go. The end of the semester kind of happens, and one of the other TAs come up to me and she was like, well, the professor is going around saying that you called her out of her name, you called her a female dog, and I was flirting with the students. Now, these are huge allegations. Now, if they had any premise, I would have been in a lot more trouble, and I would have been hearing from other people. But she was just gossiping about me. Now, that gossip got to my advisor. And at that point, he had a meeting with me and was like, you know what? I didn't know that you were such an asshole. I didn't know that you were such a mean and bad guy. And I can't believe that you're like this. Now I'm just sitting here taking barrage of derogatory statements from my advisor. And he never once asked me for my side of the story. He never once asked me, hey, what happened? So at this point, it's pretty bad. Let me tell you, it's pretty bad. So I actually leave, and I leave to go home for a little while. And during this time, I have to make a decision of whether or not I need to say something about it. Now, whenever something happens to you, either racially, discriminatory, I advise you not to wait. Because these things happen more often than we would like to admit. But we can't sit here and ignore them, because I sat here and ignored it. Things built up and they blew up. Bigger than I ever thought they would. Now, part 3 is going to consist of what was the backlash of me conducting this email, writing this email, and sending it off to tell my side of the story, since nobody else wanted to listen. So stay tuned, because part 3 is a little bit of a doozy. Alright? Peace. Hey guys, if you like these videos, make sure you like, you share it, you subscribe it, tell your friends, tell your girlfriend, tell your mama, tell your baby's mama. You know what? Just tell everybody, alright? Gang gang.